Hello and welcome to this video on how to integrate JavaScript plugins to your OutSystems applications. My name is Jay Santos and I'm one of OutSystems developer advocates. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to OutSystems channel on YouTube and check out the advocacy team hints and how-tos playlist for more great videos that will speed up your OutSystems development even further. Let's get started. Today we will be working with Iconate, a plugin that allows you to animate your icons. The cool thing is that the demo used by the Iconate website itself uses Fonts Awesome, which is the same set of icons used by the OutSystems native icon widget. But of course, Iconate works with any set of icons you may be using on your application. So on the Iconate website itself, you already have a demo showing how the plugin works and how to use it. So over here I have a small set of icons that I can test. So let's say share and then book and the animation I want to do it. So let's do rubber band. So when I click, you can see that I have the rubber band animation switching back and forth between the share and the book icon. If I choose another animation, fade out left, for instance, I have a different effect. Now let me switch to the GitHub repository for Iconate. And I already have Iconate's repository cloned on my machine. I'll leave the basic documentation open over here on the screen, right here, for reference. But as you can see, the documentation shows you a very basic usage with icons and animations hard-coded. Over here in step 3, you can see that the options part, we'll go over the details about what the option is, but the options part already have a FA-bars icon, an FA arrow right icon, and the rubber band animation. This is hard-coded, and what we're going to do is to create a framework that will allow you for a more generic and effective use of Iconate on your OutSystems web applications. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a reusable, configurable web block that uses Iconate. With that said, let's jump into Service Studio. First of all, if we have a look at the Iconate web block, which I already have open here, style sheet, we can see that I've already added here and minified the CSS file contained in the Iconate repository. So I already have here, if I switch real quick here to the repository, I have a CSS file with all the available animations for Iconate, such as zoom out, zoom in, fade out. So they are all here on the style sheet for my web block. I also have here the JavaScript source code for Iconate on my web block JavaScript code. Now, it's important to note that there are other ways to add JavaScript code to your project, and we'll see another one later in the video. And you can learn about all these methods of adding JavaScript to your OutSystems project in the masterclass on JavaScript and jQuery available on OutSystems website. You can find the link for that masterclass on the video description below. Now, let's have a look inside our web block itself. First of all, let's go over these 5 input parameters that the block have. So the first one is called animation name and is the name of the animation that will be executed. So if we go back to the Iconate demo, we had this list of animations that we could select. So this is the animation name parameter. And you can find a list of all the animations available on Iconate's GitHub repo. Let's click back here for a second, scroll down, and here you have the list of animations that are available. Jumping to the next parameter, the next parameter is the icon class. Now, this will be used by the web block to create the icon itself. Font Awesome icons have an FA prefix to their class names and can also receive suffixes for settings. In our case, we will use the suffix FA-3x to draw the icon 3 times its regular size. You can find more information about these names and the settings on FontAwesome's website documentation. Next up, we have the from icon and to icon parameters, which are the two icons we'll be switching back and forth between. Finally, the unique ID parameter will contain the web block's instance unique ID and will be used throughout the block to identify the block itself, the web block itself, and the icon within it. Now, let's switch to the widget tree and go over what is inside the block itself. So on top of the block, we have an if statement, and this if statement will show on the true branch the iconate logo, and it is going to show the iconate logo, of course, if the condition is true, and if the condition is simply checking if we are in preview mode. So this is just a way to show the developer that the block is present while he's developing the page. You're going to see the effect in a second. Now in the false block, this is where the magic happens. If I expand the false block, you can see that the false block have a couple of expressions. And these expressions are in the false block because if we're running the actual web application that uses this web block, we are not on preview mode, and hence the false block will be active and these expressions will be on our page. So as I said, we have two expressions. Let's go over them. The first one is the most straightforward one, and what it do is it creates the icon element. And if we go back to the iconate the iconate repository, you can see that the first step, well, actually the first step is including the style sheet and JavaScript files, which we've already seen how we've added to the web block. But the next step is to create the icon element using this statement here. And this is what we're doing. We're doing exactly that. We're creating the icon using this statement. Now, one detail, and the only difference in what we are doing, is that you can see that in the ID of our icon, we are adding this underscore icon suffix to our unique ID. And the goal of that is to differentiate the icon itself from the web block containing it. Remember that the unique ID is from the web block. So this way, we will ensure that iconate will act on the icon and not on the web block. So we're setting the ID to the unique ID of the web block, but we're adding an icon suffix just to differentiate it from the web block. Now the second expression is the one that actually contains the JavaScript code that calls the iconate function itself. Let's go over that now. So let's open the second expression and have a look at it. First of all, as you can see, the expression contains a snippet of JavaScript code, and that is the second way you can add JavaScript to your OutSystems projects. Now, the first thing I have is two variables, one called icon element and one called options. Notice that both variable names have the unique ID parameter added as a suffix. This ensures that I can have several instances of this web block inside any given page of my application, and I'm able to isolate the code from each web block by the unique ID. Next, we have a function that is called onTheReady event. The ready event happens when the DOM has been completely loaded. So we ensure that this only happens when the page is fully loaded on our application. here, the first thing we do is to set the icon element variable using the getElementID method and the options variable. Notice that the option variable contains two icons, the to and from, and the animation to be used. The options variable will be used by the iconate method, which is a method from the JavaScript plugin itself. Finally, we add an event listener to our icon, which will call a function called callIconate, which also have the web block's unique ID as suffix, once again, to guarantee different behaviors to different web blocks. Finally, I have the callIconate method itself, once again, with the unique ID as suffix. This method simply calls the iconate method from the JavaScript plugin. If we go to the iconate.js file, we can have a look at here on the GitHub repo. You can see that we have, let's scroll down, over here, we have the iconate method here. It's worth noting here that on the callback function, which is the function that is called once the animation is finished, I am simply switching the to and from icons so I can go back and forth between the icons when I click on them. So this is the web block. As you can see, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Let's see how I'd use this web block in my application. So here I have a new web application, and I've already added the iconate web block, which we have created, which we went through in the first part of the video. I've added it, of course, setting a dependency to the iconate module that I have used to create the web block. So I simply set it as a dependency here on this web application. And because of that, the web block is available here for me. So I'm going to get the web block and drag it into my main content. Let's just enclose it in a container just to be fancy. And as you can see, the first thing is I can see the bluish exclamation mark, which is the iconate logo, which I'm using just to represent that the web block is here. If you remember, if we go back to the block, I had the if statement on my web block, and if I'm on the web preview, I'm just gonna show the image. So for now, I can only see the exclamation mark. I can only see the image showing that yes, the web block is present right here. So as you can see, we have a few errors, and those errors are all related to the variables from the web block, which we're gonna set now. So let's start by setting the animation name. So I'm just gonna, so for this one, let's use the animation horizontal flip. Once again, if you want to see the list of animations available, you can go to Iconate's repo, and you have the list of animations that are available there. One of them is, of course, the horizontal flip. Now, the icon class, as I mentioned, Font Awesome Icons class always starts with an FA, so I'm going to put FA, and then I'm going to use the name of the icon that I want to start with, which is, let's use FA bars, and finally I'm going to add FA-3x. So the 3x is going to make the icon to be drawn 3 times its size, just to make it easier for you to see it when you're watching this video. Once again, on Font Awesome's website, you have a list of all the parameters that you can use on the class name of your icon. Next, my from icon is going to be the FA bars, which is the one that I've added on the icon class, and I want to switch, say, for instance, I don't know, the FA pencil icon. And finally, the unique ID is, once again, the ID of our web block. Let's call this web block first block. We're going to add one more, just so you can see the different usage for 2 blocks, or for whatever, how many blocks you want. And on the unique ID, I'm going to go to the expression editor, and I'm going to select first block.id, which is the unique ID of this block. And there you go. Our first block is set. Now let's, well, as I said, let's add another block here right underneath this one, and let's set this one differently. So let's call it second block. There you go. And the animation for this one, let's go to the list. Let's see what animations we have. Ta-da! Ta-da looks like a pretty cool name. So we're going to do a ta-da effect. And it's going to jump on the screen, or I don't know. Let's just use ta-da and get surprised. Over here, I'm going to add the class name. And for this one, I'm going to use a bell icon. And one other detail is that if you want to check the list of icons available, you can either go once again to the Font Awesome website, or you can go on your data tab, and on your database under rich widgets you have an entity called icon name, which have the name of all the icons that are available. As you can see here, I'm using Bell, which is this one, and I'm going to transition between Bell and Bell O. So you can see that the name of the Bell icon is FA-Bell, and Bell O is FA-Bell-O. So let's get back here to my web block. Where is it? There you go. So I'm using FA Bell, and the to icon is going to be FA Bell O, and the unique ID, once again, second block ID. There you go. Now I'm going to publish my application. Shouldn't take long. So we can check the behavior of the icons. That's it. Let's open it. So here I have the 2 icons. I'm going to click on the first one, and as you can see, on a horizontal flip, which was once again the animation that we were using, I have a horizontal flip between the 3 bars and the pencil. And on the bell, when I click, I have this fancy ta-da animation between the 2 bells. So you see how easy it was to integrate the JavaScript to our application, and also create a wrapper on it to make it easy and fast to reuse it and use it on different places on my application. So that's it for now. I hope it was useful and helpful, and that will make you develop applications faster using JavaScript plugins. This is my email, j.santos@outsystems.com, and this is my Twitter account, @JOutSystems. Make sure to follow me to get the latest news and tips on OutSystems development. I hope this was useful once again, and I see you on the next video.